You're irredundant. Pack your bags. Those words detonated across the conference room like a rifle blast. 300 employees went dead silent. The projector behind him still glowed with our third quarter numbers, the best we'd ever posted, built almost entirely on systems I had designed. And yet there I stood, front and center at the company town hall, while my director, Kenneth Ashford, jabbed a finger at me as though I were gum stuck to his heel. 24 hours later, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Kenneth's voice cracked through the speaker. Tessa, please. Legal says we can't move forward. The Northridge acquisition, the whole $2.5 billion, it's frozen. They need your sign-off. Your signature. I was curled up in my apartment, still in pajamas, a mug of coffee gone cold on the table beside me. The same apartment where I'd packed moving boxes, rewritten my resume, cried into a pillow. The irony wasn't wasted on me. That's unfortunate, I said, studying my nails. Tessa, be reasonable. The deal dies the moment my contract does, Kenneth. Those were the terms I negotiated 3 years back. Terms nobody bothered reading until yesterday's little performance. The quiet on his end was pure satisfaction. Before I walk you through how it all came apart and then somehow snapped back together better than ever, a quick thank you. We just crossed 2,000 subscribers and we're chasing 3. If stories like this one do it for you, hit subscribe and join us. Now let me rewind to where this whole thing started. My name is Tessa Mercer. Up until that town hall, I held the title of Senior Vice President of Strategic Integration at Caldwell Industries, a mid-sized pharmaceutical company with oversized ambitions. The title sounded grander than the job usually felt, but the results spoke louder than any title could. I'd steered 4 major acquisitions in 6 years, each one tacking hundreds of millions onto our market value. People heard Princeton and assumed I'd grown up with money. The real story was messier and better. My mother scrubbed floors in houses across suburban New Jersey. My father spent 30 years behind the wheel of a delivery truck. They never skipped a parent-teacher conference, and they never once let me feel like our cramped 2-bedroom apartment was anything less than a palace. When my mother's employer, Mrs. Chun, learned I'd been accepted to Princeton but couldn't cover the cost, she didn't simply write a check. She sat my parents down and explained that betting on potential wasn't charity, it was just good sense. She covered my first year, and I picked up 3 jobs on campus to handle the rest. I never brought that history into Caldwell's boardrooms or executive retreats, but it colored every decision I made. I never forgot that getting ahead required talent, opportunity, and people willing to believe in you before you'd proven anything. That's why I knew every janitor's name. Why I ate lunch in the company cafeteria instead of the executive dining room. Why I pushed for real benefits packages in every deal I structured. And why Kenneth Ashford had always considered me a nuisance. 6 months before that town hall blew up my career, Caldwell had opened early talks with Northridge Pharmaceuticals. On paper it looked flawless. Northridge held cutting-edge immunotherapy research but no real distribution network. We covered 48 states but our research pipeline had gone stagnant. This deal at $2.5 billion would be our largest ever, nearly doubling our size in one stroke. I should have felt thrilled. Instead, something felt wrong from the very first meeting. Kenneth had hired an outside firm, Brennan and Associates, to consult on the transaction. Their lead consultant, Christopher Holloway, carried the kind of gleaming self-assurance that comes from never once hearing the word no. He wore watches worth more than most people's cars and held strong opinions on everything, despite grasping nothing about how our company actually ran. What Caldwell needs, Christopher declared during our second strategy session, is to cut the fat. Northridge brings innovation. You bring infrastructure. But infrastructure doesn't require this many bodies. I set my pen down deliberately. Our distribution network runs because of those people. They're not fat. They're the muscle that keeps this company moving. Kenneth laughed, though there was nothing warm in it. Tessa's always been sentimental about staff. Admirable, but this is business. It's business built on people, I shot back. Every deal I've led succeeded because we kept the institutional knowledge. We don't gut teams, we absorb them. Christopher gave me a look reserved for children who don't grasp grown-up conversations. Times change. The market rewards efficiency now, not loyalty. Over the following months, I watched the Northridge plan take shape in ways that turned my stomach. The integration blueprint Kenneth and Christopher built called for cutting 40% of the workforce within 6 months of closing. And these weren't throwaway roles. Angela in HR, 15 years at Caldwell, who knew every employee on site. James in logistics, who'd streamlined our delivery routes so well we trimmed costs by 18% over 2 years. Whole teams whose only crime was standing in the way of Kenneth's ambitions and Christopher's spreadsheets. I fought it in every meeting I could. I brought alternative structures to the table. I laid out how retention-focused integrations had beaten scorched earth approaches in comparable deals, backed by data, case studies, 5 years of our own track record. Kenneth's answer was to quietly cut me out of the important meetings. By the 4th month, it was clear I was being pushed to the margins on purpose. Emails I should have been copied on simply weren't. Meetings landed on my blocked-off calendar slots, then happened anyway, followed by a breezy, "Sorry you couldn't make it." It was my assistant, Holly, who finally spelled out what I already suspected. "They're building a shadow structure," she told me one evening after most of the floor had cleared out. "Kenneth has Christopher writing all the integration paperwork. Legal is working from his documents, not yours." "That's not how this works," I said, though I wasn't shocked. "Every integration plan runs through my office. That's my actual job." "I know." Holly looked pained. "But Kenneth's been telling people you're not aligned with where the new Caldwell is headed." His exact words. "Not aligned with the vision. Corporate code for she's in the way." That night I made up my mind. I pulled every contract, every document, every agreement I'd ever signed with Caldwell, my original offer letter, every promotion, the special clauses I'd fought for after the Hyperion deal when 3 rival firms had tried to poach me. That's where I found it. Clause 47, subsection C. For any acquisition above $1 billion in value, every integration protocol and final document required sign-off from the Senior Vice President of Strategic Integration, non-transferable, and essential to closing the deal. My attorney, a razor-sharp woman named Judith Wong, read it aloud to me over the phone. "This is bulletproof, Tessa," she said finally. "They cannot legally close Northridge without your signature. This clause makes you indispensable to the transaction. Could they fire me and just get the signature from whoever takes my job? No. It says non-transferable. It's tied to you specifically and to your active employment. Terminate you before the deal closes and the clause dies with it, meaning they'd have to rebuild the entire approval chain from scratch. This late, with a deal this size, that would probably kill it outright. The whole timeline would collapse." I sat on that knowledge for 3 days without telling a soul. Looking back, I should have gone straight to Kenneth, used it as leverage to get a seat back at the table, to shield the employees about to be sacrificed on the altar of efficiency. But I never got the chance. Kenneth moved first. The quarterly town hall was billed as a celebration. We just reported record profits, 37% above the prior year. The Northridge deal was, by every account, sailing toward approval. Caldwell was flying high. The entire company packed into the main auditorium. Kenneth took the podium looking every bit the visionary CEO he imagined himself to be. He spoke about innovation, about the future, about the hard calls required for the greater good. Then he unveiled the new org chart. My name was missing. In its place, Christopher Holloway's photo sat beneath a freshly invented title, Chief Integration Officer, reporting straight to Kenneth. A ripple moved through the crowd. Heads turned, searching for me. Holly, seated beside me, squeezed my hand. "Tessa," she whispered. I kept my expression flat, though my pulse was pounding. Kenneth pressed on. "As we step into this exciting new chapter, we need leaders who embrace change without flinching, who understand that loyalty to the mission sometimes means letting go of the past." He was staring straight at me now. Half the room had swiveled to watch. "Which is why I'm announcing that several legacy positions are being eliminated, effective immediately. These roles have served us well, but they no longer fit our trajectory." Legacy positions. As though I were an outdated piece of software. Tessa Mercer, our former SVP of Strategic Integration, is among those transitioning out. The auditorium went utterly still. Former. He'd already made the call. This wasn't a conversation, it was a public execution. I rose slowly. Every eye in the room found me. "Kenneth, I wasn't told we were discussing this." His smile went thin. "Your role has become redundant, Tessa. We've restructured around leaner frameworks. I trust you understand. Redundant. I repeated it, letting the absurdity of the word sink in. The person who built every successful acquisition this company has closed. Redundant. I appreciate everything you've contributed, Kenneth said, condescension dripping from every syllable. But we're heading in a different direction. I'll need your things packed and your access credentials returned by end of day. Somebody gasped, maybe Holly, maybe one of 100 others who knew exactly what I'd built there. You're irredundant. Pack your bags. Kenneth's voice climbed, the professional gloss cracking. I don't have time for a scene, Tessa. Security will walk you out if it comes to that. The humiliation was calculated to be complete. Public. A warning to anyone else tempted to question him. I collected my things and walked out of that auditorium with my chin level, hands shaking despite myself, every impulse screaming to argue, to explain, to make them see. But I stayed quiet because I already knew about Clause 47 subsection C, and Kenneth didn't. The next morning I woke to 17 missed calls, every single one from Caldwell, every one from Kenneth's direct line. I let them go to voicemail. Holly texted. Legal is losing it. Something about Northridge. Kenneth looks ready to stroke out. I made breakfast, scrambled eggs, toast, coffee, and took my time doing it. For the first time in 6 years, I had absolutely nowhere to be. My phone rang again, a number I knew this time. Martin Castellano, Caldwell's general counsel. Picked up. Tessa, thank God. We have a situation. Hello, Martin. How can I help? Oh, wait, I'm redundant. Not sure I'm qualified to help with much of anything. Tessa, please. We just found a clause in your contract tied to the Northridge deal. It requires your signed approval. Clause 47, subsection C. Yes, I said evenly. I'm aware. You knew. I negotiated that clause 3 years ago after Hyperion. My lawyer insisted, given how essential my role is to major acquisitions. Or was. Since I'm redundant now, I imagine it's beside the point. Tessa. His voice was fraying. Without your signature, we can't close Northridge. The deadline is 72 hours out. Miss it and the whole deal falls apart. We've already burned $40 million on prep and due diligence. The stock's already up on the announcement. If this collapses, that does sound stressful, Martin. I'm sorry you're stuck with it. We need you to come in and sign. I was terminated. My credentials were pulled yesterday. I believe Kenneth's exact phrase was pack your bags. A long silence. What would it take for you to sign? We'll discuss it, I said. But not with you, Martin. Send Kenneth. He made this mess. He can be the one to clean it up. Kenneth called that afternoon. The same man who had humiliated me before 300 colleagues, who had waved away 6 years of work as legacy and redundant, now needing something only I could give him. Tessa, we need to talk. Do we? I thought we'd covered everything yesterday. I'm redundant, remember? I may have moved too fast. You fired me in public, Kenneth. At a town hall. In front of the entire company. There's nothing hasty about that. That was planned. Silence. Then. What do you want? An apology would be a start. Fine. I apologize. Not to me. To every person in that auditorium who watched you treat me like trash. But we'll get there. First, let's talk terms. I heard him breathing hard. What terms? My reinstatement. Immediate. Full restoration of title, duties, authority. Christopher Holloway's contract terminated. And we go back to my integration plan, the one that doesn't gut 40% of the workforce. That's impossible. We've already. Then the deal dies, Kenneth. Your call. You're being unreasonable. I'm redundant, apparently. Redundant things don't owe anyone reasonable. He hung up. An hour later, Martin called back. Kenneth's open to reinstating you, but he's refusing the rest. Then there's nothing to discuss. Martin, there are thousands of shareholders invested in a company I helped build. Kenneth wants to gut it for a quick headline. I won't sign off on that. He's talking about suing you for breach of contract. My contract requires me to perform my duties while employed. I'm not employed. He made sure of that. Tell Kenneth his options are: sue me, fire me again, or negotiate honestly. By the second day, things had spiraled past Kenneth's control. The board got involved. I got a call from Ellen Pritchard, the board chair. Unlike Kenneth, Ellen had always dealt with me straight. I want to hear your side. I told her everything. The deliberate exclusion from Northridge planning, Christopher's scorched earth model, the termination list, Kenneth's public spectacle. I negotiated Clause 47 specifically to prevent something like this. I explained. Big acquisitions need careful integration. If leadership can sideline the integration lead on a whim, bad deals happen. People get hurt. Shareholders lose money. That clause was a safeguard. And now Kenneth's triggered it by firing you. He didn't read my contract before he fired me. That's not on me. Ellen went quiet a moment. What are you asking for? Reverse the integration plan. End the Brennan contract. Kenneth will fight that. Then he can explain to shareholders why he blew up a $2.5 billion deal, rather than keep good employees. This could get messy. It's already messy, Ellen. I'm just the only one saying it out loud. Another pause. The board meets tonight. Don't sign a thing until you hear from me. The board session ran 4 hours. Holly texted updates the whole time. She still had friends in the executive suite watching it all unfold. Kenneth showed up with Christopher and a lawyer. Board doesn't look happy. Ellen's grilling Kenneth on why he never reviewed your contract first. One board member just called the town hall stunt grossly unprofessional. Christopher's trying to defend the integration plan. Someone asked him why cutting 40% beats your model. He's struggling. Ellen just asked Kenneth point-blank, is your ego worth $2.5 billion? At 10:47 p.m. my phone rang. Ellen. The board has decided. Kenneth is on administrative leave effective now. We're offering you full reinstatement as SVP of Strategic Integration, with a seat on the executive committee. Your integration plan goes forward in full. Christopher Holloway's contract is terminated. And we're prepared to offer a retention package, $3 million vested immediately, to secure your commitment through the Northridge transition. I braced for a lot of outcomes, but not that one. What happens to Kenneth long-term? Still being decided. But he'll have no authority over you or this acquisition going forward. The board will oversee directly. And the employees? The ones marked for termination. Your plan protects them. We're honoring it. I shut my eyes, feeling something I hadn't in months. Hope. I want one more thing. Name it. A public apology. Not to me, to the company. Kenneth needs to admit what he did at that town hall was wrong. That he acted without proper review. That it doesn't reflect Caldwell's values. Done. We'll have it drafted tonight. He delivers it tomorrow. Walking back into Caldwell felt like stepping into a dream. 71 hours had passed since Kenneth fired me in front of everyone. Now I was returning with more power than I'd left with. Holly met me at the elevator, eyes wet. The email went out this morning. Everyone knows you're back. People are already calling it the greatest comeback in company history. The apology had gone to every employee at 8 a.m. To the Caldwell Industries team, I made a serious error in judgment at our recent town hall. I terminated Tessa Mercer without properly reviewing her contractual protections, and without the respect her contributions to this company deserved. That action was unprofessional, and does not reflect the values we claim to stand for. Tessa has been fully reinstated, and I apologize to her, and to all of you for the disruption and distress this caused. Kenneth Ashford. It wasn't everything I wanted, but it was something, an acknowledgement on the record. The Northridge deal closed 3 days later. I signed the final paperwork in a conference room with Martin, Ellen, and 4 attorneys watching. My signature, the one Kenneth had dismissed as redundant, unlocked $2.5 billion in value. More importantly, it protected 847 jobs. People who would wake up the next day still holding their careers, their health coverage, their dignity. Christopher Holloway was out. Kenneth remained on leave, his future unresolved. And I had a new contract with protection spelling out, in no uncertain terms, that integration expertise was neither optional nor legacy nor redundant. It was essential. The Northridge integration stretched across 8 months. Unlike Kenneth's scorched earth vision, we handled it with care. We identified genuine redundancies in systems, not people. Where roles overlapped, we retrained instead of terminating. Where Northridge brought fresh innovation, We paired it with our own institutional memory instead of erasing it. 18 months after the deal closed, Caldwell's market cap had climbed 127%. Employee satisfaction scores hit a record high, and 3 major publications named us among the top healthcare companies for workplace culture. Kenneth never came back from leave. The board offered him a resignation package and he took it. Last I heard, he was consulting for a private equity firm. Christopher Holloway moved on to a different firm. I don't track his career. As for me, I stayed at Caldwell 3 more years, led 2 more successful acquisitions, and built a team that understood integration was never just about spreadsheets and efficiency scores, it was about people. Eventually I left to launch my own consulting firm, not the kind that walks in recommending 40% layoffs, but the kind that helps companies grow without forgetting that every headcount number is a person with a mortgage, kids in school, dreams worth protecting. My mother still brings up that time you got fired and then unfired, retelling it at every family gathering, always ending the same way. That's my daughter. She doesn't back down. Mrs. Chun, the woman who helped get me to Princeton all those years back, sent me a card after reading about the Northridge deal in the Wall Street Journal. It read, "I always knew you'd do important things, but I'm proudest that you did them the right way." The right way? That's the part that actually matters. What happened at Caldwell was never really about Clause 47 subsection C. It wasn't about a $2.5 billion deal or Kenneth's ego, or even my signature. It was about a choice every organization makes, usually without noticing it's making one. Are people resources to be optimized, or the foundation everything valuable rests on? Kenneth saw redundancy. I saw Angela, who knew every employee by name. James, who'd streamlined delivery routes. Holly, who'd warned me when the walls were closing in. Hundreds of people who'd built careers at Caldwell and poured their time and talent into making it work. The business case for protecting those jobs was airtight. I had the numbers to prove it. But even without the numbers, I'd have fought the same fight, because I remembered exactly what it felt like to be counted out before anyone bothered to look. I remembered Mrs. Chun seeing potential where others might have seen risk. Careers don't hand out many chances to truly stand for something. Most days are compromise, small skirmishes, incremental gains. But every so often, life hands you a moment where the choice is stark. Fold or hold the line. I held the line. Not because I was brave or exceptional, but because I'd negotiated a contract that gave me leverage, and because walking away from 847 people felt worse than any career risk I might have faced. The leverage mattered, let's be honest about that. Without Clause 47, Kenneth would have succeeded. Fired me, pushed his plan through, gutted the workforce. Good intentions don't stop bad decisions. Power does. That's why I tell every young professional I mentor now. Read your contracts, negotiate protections, build leverage while you still have value. Not once you're desperate for it. The system doesn't reward righteousness. It rewards power. And if we want that power used for good, we have to claim it first. The Caldwell story ended up as something of a business school case study. I've been asked to speak about it at conferences, though I usually turn it down because the story gets flattened in those settings. Clever executive outsmarts vindictive boss, which misses the entire point. The real story is about systems. Kenneth wasn't uniquely cruel. Christopher wasn't unusually callous. They were operating inside a business culture that prizes short-term efficiency over long-term health, that treats people as disposable, that confuses cruelty with toughness. That culture survives because we let it. Because boards chase quarterly numbers over employee retention. Because shareholders demand growth without asking what's paying for it. Because consultants can pocket millions recommending layoffs without ever meeting a single person they're cutting. Changing that culture takes more than one clause or one stalled acquisition. It takes thousands of small decisions from people who actually have a choice. The board member who asks hard questions about the human cost, the executive who won't implement a destructive plan, the consultant who pushes sustainable growth instead of scorched earth. Most people don't have a Clause 47 to lean on. They get fired and there's no dramatic reversal, no board rescue, no tidy ending. But they still have choices. They can build networks that help them land somewhere better. They can refuse to carry out policies they know are wrong, even at a cost. They can document everything, know their rights, and make it expensive for the people trying to wrong them. And those of us who do hold power through contracts, titles, expertise, resources, owe it to use that power wisely. Not only for ourselves but for the people who have none. That's the real lesson Caldwell taught me. 5 years after the town hall, I ran into Kenneth at an industry conference. We were speaking on different panels, mine on sustainable integration, his on agile restructuring. We didn't cross paths during the sessions, but I spotted him alone at the hotel bar that evening. Against my better judgment, I walked over. Kenneth. He looked up startled. Tessa. I wasn't sure you'd. Neither was I admitted. But here we both are. He gestured to the empty seat across from him. Iset. Neither of us spoke for a long moment. Then, I read about your firm. The Boston work. Impressive. Thank you. Another pause. I handled the Caldwell situation badly. Yes, you did. The board, they said I let my ego override my judgment. That I mistook your caution for opposition instead of expertise. That's accurate. He smiled faintly. You're not going to make this easy. Why would I? He stared into his drink. For what it's worth, the acquisition worked out better than my plan ever would have. I can admit that now. 847 people kept their jobs, Kenneth. That's what worked out. I know. He met my eyes. I'm sorry. I should have said it years ago. I nodded slowly. I appreciate you saying it now. We talked another 20 minutes, not friends, never that, but maybe two people who'd taken different lessons from the same crisis. Kenneth had landed on his feet the way people like him often do. But he'd also lost something at Caldwell. A reputation, trust, the trajectory he'd been riding. Whether he'd truly learned anything I couldn't say. But at least he'd owned the harm. Sometimes that's the most you get. These days my firm runs about 20 integration projects a year. We're picky. We only work with companies willing to commit to our principles. Transparency with employees, genuine retention efforts, sustainable growth. We turn down plenty of business. Companies wanting us to rubber stamp decisions already made. Private equity firms hunting for someone to dress up layoffs as strategy. Executives who think integration is just a polite word for elimination. Principals aren't always profitable. We'd make more money being less selective about clients. But I didn't leave Caldwell to build the same problems somewhere new. On every project, I think about those 847 employees. Most are still at Caldwell or moved on somewhere else on their own terms. Several have reached out over the years to thank me. Those messages mean more than any paycheck ever could. One in particular stays with me. It came from James in logistics, the man who'd streamlined our delivery routes. I never got the chance to tell you what it meant, he wrote. I was 3 years from retirement when Kenneth's plan would have cut me loose. No one hires a 62-year-old. I'd have lost everything. You saved my life. I got to retire with dignity. My granddaughter just started college. I'm helping cover her tuition. None of that happens if you hadn't fought for us. Thank you. That's what it was really about. Not the $2.5 billion. Not the board drama or Kenneth's reckoning, or my clever contract clause. A granddaughter in college. A retirement with dignity. A life that kept moving forward because someone with power chose to use it responsibly. I still keep James's email saved on my phone. On the hard days when I'm tempted to bend on principle or take the easier road, I read it again. A reminder of what actually matters. The story of that town hall has been retold a dozen different ways by now. In some versions I'm the hero who outmaneuvered a villain. In others I'm the difficult employee who held a company hostage over pride. The truth sits somewhere messier than either version. I was angry and hurt and scared. I used leverage because I had it, not because I was noble. I got lucky my lawyer insisted on Clause 47. 3 years earlier. I got lucky Ellen Pritchard chaired the board and cared more about doing right than shielding Kenneth. Luck and leverage, that's what tipped the scales. But I also made a choice. When Kenneth's voice rang through that auditorium, "You're irredundant. Pack your bags." I could have simply accepted it, updated my resume, taken the severance, moved on. No one would have blamed me. Instead, I went home and read my contract, built a plan, drew a line, and when they came begging for my signature, I made sure they understood. People aren't redundant. Systems are. Processes are. But human beings, with all their knowledge and relationships and granddaughters starting college, they're irreplaceable. That's the part of this story that actually matters. Not that I won. Not that Kenneth lost. but that when it counted, hundreds of people kept their jobs because someone with power chose to spend it on something other than self-interest. We all get versions of that choice at some point, usually smaller, quieter, with no $2.5 billion deal riding on it. But they still count. The choice to speak up when something's wrong in a meeting, to refuse a policy that hurts people, to negotiate for others, not only yourself, to read the fine print and know your own worth. Small choices add up. They shape careers, companies, entire cultures. They decide whether we become the kind of people who see redundancy or the kind who see possibility.
I chose possibility.
I chose people, and I've never once regretted it. 24 hours after Kenneth tore into me in front of 300 colleagues, he was begging for my signature. It would be easy to close the story there, on that satisfying reversal. But the real ending is quieter than that. It's James at his granddaughter's college graduation. It's Angela, still at Caldwell, now running HR. It's Holly, whom I hired at my own firm, building a career on principles worth having. It's me, knowing that when leverage came my way, I spent it on something worth the cost. That's the actual story. Not revenge, not victory. Just the reminder that behind every business decision sit real people whose lives hang in the balance. And sometimes, with enough luck and preparation and nerve, we get to tip that balance towards something like justice. If any of this struck a chord with your own experience, workplace politics, standing your ground, or just the satisfaction of a battle well fought, I'd appreciate a subscribe. We're chasing 3,000 subscribers, so if this one landed for you, hit that button and help us get there. See you in the next one.